let's say you get an urge right now to play video games, and you kind of get excited, like, oh man, that seems real fun. Right there, that's the most enjoyment you are going to get out of the entire process. And out of it, if you do indulge, you fuck up your entire day. The reason older people play less video games than younger people is because they have bigger problems to deal with. I used to be real competitive in the games that I would play, like Rainbow Six Siege, Rocket League, where you have ranking systems. Some shit like bronze and then silver, gold, platinum. When you grow older, you have more shit to deal with than the rank you have in Rainbow Six Siege. And I now realize that I have some major problems in my life. For example, like my parents aren't retired. In 6 months, I could drive, but I can't afford a car. I'm not living in my dream house. The people who I surround myself with aren't the people who I want to be surrounding myself with in 10 years' time. Okay, now that you have some backstory, let's get into the real video. Let's say you're just chilling in your room and you get an urge to play video games. And you want to be that guy who doesn't play video games. And let's say you do play a game or two. That's all it took. That small little urge, that small little dopamine boost was all it took to get you to play a game, to get you to waste an hour or two of time. That's all it took to send you down a spiral of bad habits. But what I mean by spiral of bad habits is if you play a game, then you might as well eat some shitty junk food while you're playing, because that makes it twice as better. And in between rounds or in between games or while you're loading, you could go on your phone and scroll on social media so that you could all get dopamine boosts while you're waiting for your dopamine boosts. You get what I'm saying? And maybe after you're done with the game and it's late at night, you've already fucked up the entire day, so you might as well just load up incognito mode. It sends you down a spiral of bad habits. You know, making the decision to load up Discord and checking to see if your friends are online, that decision alone will literally fuck up your entire day. So you really just have to realize your entire day can get messed up by following through with the super small, tiny urge to play a game. The most enjoyment you're going to get throughout that entire process is before you even start playing the game. This might sound confusing, but let me explain. Say you're a caveman and you're real hungry. You want some berries. Your brain realizes you need something to eat, so it gives you dopamine. And dopamine is basically just motivation. And your brain, after the first hour of being hungry, gives you dopamine. The first 2 hours gives you more dopamine. And it gives you so much motivation to find these berries as a hungry caveman that when you get to the berry and you eat it, you no longer need that motivation because you already have the berry. You are no longer receiving dopamine because you are already playing that game. You are already eating those berries. Your brain remembers how exciting it was to play games back in the day, and it wants to emulate that sort of emotion, and it wants to have fun. So it gives you dopamine so that you can get to the point to where you're playing the game, and the game ends up being not even as fun, because the most amount of enjoyment you're going to get out of that is before you even load up the game. Because that's how dopamine works. It's the motivation chemical. Once you have enough motivation so that you load up Discord, it's not as fun anymore because that's all you needed to load up Discord. Your baseline level of dopamine when you play video games drops. People talk about overstimulating your dopamine receptors. That basically means you're always on video games and you're always on social media and you're always on porn. When you're always overstimulating your dopamine receptors, things like reading aren't fun anymore. Like for me, I'm starting to look forward to reading because I cut out video games, I cut out social media, and I cut out porn. So there's nothing overstimulating me, and I'm starting to find that reading genuinely is kind of fun. Because that's like the only thing I get to do besides recording videos and watching educational YouTube videos. So if we could get a little recap going on. How I deal with the urge to resist video games is realizing that it's going to send me down a spiral of bad habits. And if I want to be a man who doesn't play video games, and all it takes is some small little urge to get dopamine off of pixels, and it's going to send me down, it's going to fuck up my whole day. If that's all it takes, then what the fuck? And the second thing is that you get most excited and you get the most dopamine before you play the game, because your brain realizes and remembers how excited it was when it was playing the game back in the day. So it tries to emulate that, and it gives you motivation and dopamine so that you could play the game. But once you're actually playing the game, it's not even that fun. Let's say you get an urge right now to play video games, and you kind of get excited, like, oh man, that seems real fun. Right there, that's the most enjoyment you are going to get out of the entire process. And out of it, if you do indulge, you fuck up your entire day. Another thing, staring at a wall is more productive than playing video games, because you're letting your mind free think and you're not just frying your dopamine receptors. Another thing, you're frying your dopamine receptors. Things like reading and things like the gym aren't as fun because you're constantly stimulating yourself with social media, pornography, and video games. When you're sitting alone in your room, you're bored. When I'm sitting alone in my room, I'm like, oh shit, okay. Well, it's time to think now. It's time to get my ideas. I'm not bored because I know this is productive for me. I know staring at a wall is more productive than indulging in these instant gratification behaviors. Another thing is I want to become a man and a person who doesn't play video games. Because imagine being a multimillionaire in your fucking mid-20s and you're spending an hour a day playing fucking Rocket League. No, the man I want to become does not play video games. So if I want to be closer to the man I want to become, you gotta cut out the bullshit. This is Marcus Blake, and I'll catch y'all boys later. Check out my latest video about free thinking, by the way.